We've finally reached a momentous time as a species, having colonized our entire planet, notwithstanding the highest peaks and deepest oceans, that the reach of our explorative natures has been caught up by our technological grasp. The stars are next, and while we've not quite landed humans on extraterrestrial bodies further than the moon, the day will come when one small step for man will be a giant leap to another world, and a new life for a courageous few who dare to push the boundaries of science and survival. In the meantime, we can always dream, and Planetbase, a game which left early access around a year ago this week, is another cycle of that dream. Can 7 people and 2 robots survive on a barren planet given enough supplies and miniaturized manufacturing technology? Of course you can, but there are other, possibly more important questions to answer. Like, why can't we build T-shaped corridors? And why can't we build domes adjacent to or touching each other? And what do these guys want? Look, all we have up here is hydroponic vegetables and a harsh, meager existence. Are you gonna mug us for it? With a gun? In a pressurized, oxygen-rich environment? And why do you have to come all the way out here for a killing spree anyways? It's awfully inconvenient. And speaking of inconvenience, why does a PhD level biologist decide to haul a box of plants outside the long way during a sandstorm? And why is no one other than a PhD level biologist capable of watering plants? And if we can send robots capable of building things autonomously to a planet, why don't we just send those robots first, have them build a stable habitat, and then send humans down? The world may never know the answers to these questions. More important than experimentation is survival, which comes naturally, if not easily, to those who've played a basic city building, theme park building, or open world crafting game before. Your colonists come in 5 flavors: worker, biologist, engineer, medic, and guard. Workers move stuff, mine stuff, and process stuff. Biologists make food and medicine. Engineers build, manufacture, and repair stuff. Medics heal stuff, and guards shoot stuff. You'll need more workers and biologists than medics, but each of your initial and future colonists will have a part to play, and annoyingly cannot play any other part. Workers cannot water plants, engineers cannot mine, and biologists cannot manufacture. Lose all of your biologists and you're shit out of luck and probably starve to death because Bob the Builder can't pick up a watering can. Aside from what they can do, the first thing all your pathetic single major meatbags will need to survive is oxygen, and since they apparently can't use the pod they just spent presumably the last several months in space to breathe out of, you'll need to immediately build facilities to supply it for them. Same for water. Again, apparently no supplies in the ship. And finally, food, which they actually brought tons of. That's useful, since it'll take a little bit of work to get your space farms going. In the meantime, you'll have to construct utilities to supply electricity, oxygen, and water. After you've got air to breathe, food to eat, water to drink, and a place to lie your head at night, that's it. You're essentially self-sufficient at this point. And this is about as far as planning would probably go for a short-term base on Mars, say. But what about the long term? What if somebody gets injured? Well, you'll need a medical bay in that case. What about entertainment? I guess we'll need a workout pod. And what if we need to store extra food instead of just letting it rot on the vine? Well, we'll need a storage pod, and geez, we're running out of building supplies. I guess we'll need to build a mine to harvest metal, and a processing plant to smelt it, and combine it with processed starch to make new pods and equipment out of. And what if one of the robots, or God forbid, the oxygen plant breaks down, which it will eventually, and we need spare parts to save us from suffocating? Well, I guess we're gonna need an advanced manufacturing plant and a bunch of skilled workers to run it. Where are those engineers anyway? Well, I guess there aren't enough people to water the plants and mine the metal and move the supplies and manufacture the tools and repair the habitat. Looks like we'll need to order more colonists. Planetbase very sneakily strings you along, from the high-priority initial goals of food, water, and oxygen, to more abstract problems which you don't realize you have until you're having them. It makes both the beginning and the mid-game a bit of a noob trap. If you don't build the right buildings in the right order within the first 20 minutes of game, your colonists will run out of oxygen and suffocate. If you don't anticipate the mid-game need for spare parts, you won't notice you're out of them until your main solar panel goes out and your air plant stops running, and your colonists run out of oxygen and suffocate. If you don't anticipate that the planets have day-night cycles and that when the sun goes down, your solar panels won't produce electricity and your colonists will run out of oxygen and suffocate. Notice there's a lot of suffocation going on in these barren worlds. Despite the deceptively simple mechanics of the game, fail states are always right around the corner, and staying ahead of the curve can be difficult. The game has a very linear tech tree and very simple colonist needs, and your struggle against these limitations produces a beautiful menagerie of chaotic problems, which blossom larger as your colony gets bigger into an open-ended series of minor catastrophes. Grow too big too fast and you'll run into food and oxygen production problems, but not enough colonists and you'll have problems keeping your pods staffed, including food production. Fail to develop basic utilities and you'll have rolling brownouts, but fail to develop your tech and you'll run into disastrous supply issues down the road. This is a game that effectively hooks you with a flowering simplicity and then reels you in with somewhat punishing difficulty. Each problem solved means further growth and prosperity and a kickback to that gamer brain pleasure center. Build more, one more turn. Planetbase's main downside is that it still feels like an early access game. After you've become truly self-sustaining, producing enough surplus to trade everything with passing space merchants for new tech, there's not much else to do but ride the unending tide of advancement and growth. If you reach a full complement of milestones on a planet, you can move on to the next one. Going down the line, the colonizable planets get less and less habitable, with less sunlight and less wind, limiting your power generation, and more natural disasters like blizzards, solar flares, and asteroids. Some of the natural disasters do have an upside. The windstorms and solar flares will boost your power production with the appropriate collectors, but anybody caught outside is gonna have a bad time. And overall, the disasters predictably make the game harder. You also typically start with fewer colonists, making the mountainous trip towards sustainability that much steeper. With the 10 hours I played, I only just barely made it off the first planet, and even with the promise of heightened difficulty with subsequent planet unlocks, Planetbase's early and mid-game came very quickly after starting my first colony, and it didn't have enough endgame to keep me going much past the 10-hour mark. The extra, more challenging planets provided a little bit of extra kick to my last few hours of play, but even within those extra milestones, once you make it to a certain point, the difficulty is all downhill from there. I like building and management games, and I like space games, and Planetbase is a good specimen of each, but the simplicity that is its strength also makes it too limited for my palate. If you're a fan of survival, management, or sci-fi games, Planetbase is a mechanically solid entry into each of those genres. As a short-term romp into the world of extraterrestrial colony management, Planetbase will probably satisfy. If you're anything like me, however, you'll be making that trip as a tourist rather than settling in.